The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Chaik Okonkwo stared at the screen of his iPhone as notification after notification flooded in. Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp. His hands trembled as he watched the numbers climb. 50,000 views, 100,000, 500,000. The video was everywhere. But it wasn't his interview that was going viral. It was his mother. On the screen, Mama Dana sat in the dusty compound he'd grown up in, the same cracked walls and rusted zinc roof visible behind her. Her weathered hands, aged beyond her 60 years from decades of washing clothes for wealthy families, held a faded yellow envelope. The camera, clearly from someone's phone, zoomed in on her face. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shouting. Her expression was calm, almost serene, as she looked directly into the lens. "My son said on television that we are backward village people," she said in Igbo, her voice steady. "He said we try to hold him back. He is ashamed of us." She paused, her fingers tracing the edges of the envelope. "But there is something Chaik does not know, something we have kept from him for 28 years because we loved him too much to burden him with the truth." Chaik's throat tightened. Around him, his luxury penthouse in Ikoyi, the leather couches, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos Island, the abstract art that cost more than his parents' entire house, suddenly felt suffocating. "What truth?" his girlfriend Ada whispered beside him, her perfectly manicured nails gripping his arm. On the screen, his mother opened the envelope with the careful reverence of someone handling something sacred. She pulled out a piece of cloth, expensive damask fabric. Even Chaik could see that, yellow with age but still showing traces of gold embroidery. 28 years ago, Mama Dana continued, "My husband and I found a baby outside Mother of Mercy Hospital in a nugu. He was wrapped in this cloth. Cry in a basket. There was a note." No. Chaik's world began to tilt. The phone slipped from his numb fingers onto the marble floor, the screen cracking, but he barely noticed. His mother's voice continued from the dropped phone, now tinny and distant. The note said, "His name is Chikazi. I cannot keep him. My family will destroy me if they know. Please give him a better life than I can." It was signed by someone who called herself a mother who loves him. The video paused on his mother's face, and then text appeared over the frozen frame. This poor woman raised a child that wasn't hers. She gave up everything. And this is how he repays her? Hashtag ungrateful son, hashtag Chaikokonkwo, hashtag viral truth. The view count hit 1 million as Chaik watched. His phone, the cracked one on the floor, began ringing again. His manager, his publicist, news stations. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted to know if it was true. But all Chaik could think about was the interview he'd given just 24 hours ago. The things he'd said. The laughter from the studio audience when he called his parents simple people who couldn't understand the modern world. Ada was talking, her voice rising in panic about PR strategies and damage control, but Chaik couldn't hear her anymore. All he could hear was the echo of his own words. Sometimes you have to leave people behind to reach your full potential, even if they're family. The irony wasn't lost on him now. He had just publicly humiliated the two people who had saved his life before he could even remember it. Let's go back and watch what really happened from the beginning of Chaik's life. Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from. What would you have done if this happened to you? Let's dive in. 24 hours earlier. The studio lights were hot, but Chaik Okonkwo was used to being in the spotlight. He adjusted his custom-made agbada, a traditional outfit redesigned by a London fashion house, and flashed his practiced smile at the camera. The studio audience of Real Talk with Amara applauded as the show's intro music faded. Amara Nwosu, Nigeria's most famous talk show host, leaned forward with her signature warm smile. Her Geli head wrap was elaborate, her makeup flawless, and her questions always sharp beneath the sweetness. "Chaik Okonkwo," she began, her voice rich with admiration. "At just 28 years old, you built TechBridge Africa into a $50 million company. You've been featured in Forbes, you're mentoring young entrepreneurs across the continent, and you've become the face of Africa's tech revolution. Tell us, how does a boy from a small village in Enugu become this? She gestured at him, and the audience laughed appreciatively. Chike's smile widened. This was his favorite story to tell, the one he perfected for TED Talks, podcasts, and magazine interviews. The rags to riches narrative that everyone loved. Hard work, determination, and knowing when to let go of limitations. He said smoothly, I grew up in Enugu with parents who meant well, but they couldn't see beyond their circumstances. My father was a taxi driver. My mother washed clothes. They wanted me to become a teacher or a civil servant. Something safe, something small. But you wanted more, Amara prompted. I wanted everything, Chike said, his voice growing passionate. I knew there was a bigger world out there. When I got admission to study computer science at the University of Lagos, my parents tried to convince me to stay in Enugu, to attend a local polytechnic, where I could live at home. They said Lagos was too dangerous, too expensive, too far from family values. He paused for effect, shaking his head with a rueful smile. I had to make a choice. Stay in their small world, or build my own empire. I chose myself. The audience applauded. Someone shouted, That's right, chase your dreams. Amara nodded thoughtfully. Your parents must be so proud now, seeing how successful you become. Chike's expression shifted just slightly, but the cameras caught it, a flicker of something that might have been discomfort, quickly masked by confidence. I'm sure they are, he said carefully. But honestly, Amara, we don't really understand each other anymore. They're still in that same compound in Enugu, living the same simple life. They don't use smartphones. They don't understand cryptocurrency or venture capital or global markets. When I try to explain my business, they just... He laughed, and the audience laughed with him. They just ask when I'm going to get married and give them grandchildren. The eternal parent question. Amara joked, and the audience roared. Exactly. Look, I love them, Chike continued, his tone becoming more dismissive than he perhaps intended. But sometimes you have to leave people behind to reach your full potential, even if they're family. They're backward village people with a poverty mindset, and I can't let that hold me back. The words hung in the air for just a moment. Some in the audience looked uncomfortable, but others nodded in agreement. Amara's smile remained fixed, but her eyes sharpened. That's quite a statement, she said carefully. Some might say family should always come first, regardless of... And those people stay poor, Chike interrupted, his confidence bordering on arrogance now. I respect what my parents did for me, but their sacrifices were their choice. I didn't ask to be born into poverty. I made myself into who I am today. Everything I have, I built with my own hands, my own mind. Nobody gave me anything. The interview continued for another 20 minutes. Discussions of his business strategy, his philanthropic efforts, his upcoming expansion into 3 more African countries. By the time it ended, Chike felt triumphant. Another perfect performance. Another piece of content that would boost his brand. He didn't notice the camera operator, who looked troubled during his comments about his parents. He didn't see the young production assistant, who immediately pulled out her phone to text someone. And he certainly didn't imagine that within hours, a video would be recorded 5 hours away in Enugu that would unravel everything he thought he knew about himself. As Chike left the studio, his phone buzzed with congratulatory messages. His publicist, great interview, very authentic. His business partner, you killed it, bro. His girlfriend, Ada, my successful man, dinner tonight to celebrate. He was scrolling through Instagram, watching the interview clips get shared and liked. When his mother called, he almost didn't answer. He never answered when she called during business hours. But something, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made him swipe to accept. Chike, my son, Mama Dana's voice came through, speaking in Igbo. I saw your interview. They showed it on someone's phone in the market. His jaw tightened. Mama, I'm busy right now. Why did you say those things about us? The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. But Chike felt annoyance rather than remorse. Here we go again, he thought. The guilt trip. The emotional manipulation. I spoke the truth, Mama. I'm not going to apologize for being honest about my journey. There was a long silence. In the background, he could hear the familiar sounds of their compound. Chickens, distant voices, the rattle of aluminum pots. The truth, his mother said quietly, is not always what we think it is, Chike. There are things you don't know. Things we should have told you long ago. I don't have time for riddles, Mama. I have meetings. Then go to your meetings, she said, and her voice had changed. It was colder now, resigned. But remember, my son, pride comes before a fall. And sometimes the ground we stand on is not as solid as we believe. She hung up before he could respond. Chike stared at his phone, irritation prickling at him. Why did she have to be so dramatic? Why couldn't she just be happy for his success instead of always making him feel guilty? He shoved the phone in his pocket and headed to his next appointment, pushing the conversation from his mind. It would be the last normal day of his life. Within 3 hours, Chike's world had collapsed. His Instagram comments were flooded with anger. Ungrateful son. Those poor parents raised you. You're a disgrace. His follower count dropped by thousands every minute. Companies began pulling sponsorships. His publicist called in tears, saying 3 major deals had been canceled. But worse than professional damage was the video itself, which now had 5 million views. Someone had found his parents' compound in Enugu and recorded Mama Dana telling the full story. His father, Papa Jike, sat beside her, his weathered face stoic as she spoke. We were coming home from the market. His mother said into the camera. It was raining that night, 28 years ago. We heard, crying near Mother of Mercy Hospital. A baby in a basket, wrapped in expensive cloth. The note said his birth mother couldn't keep him. We had been praying for a child for 7 years. We took it as God's answer. Papa Jike finally spoke, his voice rough with emotion. We sold our land to pay for his school fees. Your mother's jewelry, her wedding gold. All of it went to his education. We borrowed money we're still paying back. We never told him because we didn't want him to feel different, to feel unloved. The camera zoomed in on documents they displayed. The original note, yellowed and fragile. A police report from 1997 when they tried to find the birth parents. Medical records showing the baby had been healthy but abandoned. We gave him everything. Mama Dana said. We gave him our name, our love, our lives. And yesterday he told the whole country we were backward village people holding him back. The video ended with a message from the person who recorded it. These people deserve better. Share this so Chike Okonkwo sees what real love looks like. Chike sat in his penthouse as darkness fell over Lagos. Ada had left. Cry about her own reputation being damaged by association. His business partner called to say investors were getting nervous. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with journalists requesting interviews. But all he could think about was one question. Was it true? He opened his laptop and began searching. Birth records, hospital files, anything that could prove or disprove the story. But as he dug deeper, he found nothing. No birth certificate in his name from 1997, no hospital records, nothing that definitively proved Mama Dana and Papa Jike were his biological parents. Because they weren't. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Every memory of his childhood suddenly shifted, taking on new meaning. The way other kids whispered about him. The strange looks from relatives. His parents' fierce protectiveness. The unconditional love that now, horrifyingly, he understood had been even more profound than he'd realized. They had chosen him, sacrificed for him, loved him without obligation, and he had called them backward. At 2 a.m., Chike made a decision. He booked a flight to Enugu for first thing in the morning. He had to face them. He had to know the whole truth. And somehow he had to make this right. But as he tried to sleep, one thought kept him awake. Who was his birth mother? And why had she abandoned him? The compound looked smaller than Chike remembered. He stood outside the familiar gate in Enugu, his designer shoes dusty from the red earth, his overnight bag feeling absurdly expensive and out of place. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, curious onlookers, some with phones recording. The viral video had made this place a destination. "Chike," someone shouted, "come to beg your parents now?" He ignored them and pushed through the gate. The compound was exactly as he'd left it 4 years ago during his last brief visit. The same cracked concrete, the same clotheslines, the same wooden bench where his father used to sit in the evenings. His mother's garden of pepper plants and bitter leaf still thrived in their small plot. Mama Dana was sweeping the yard. She looked up when he entered, and their eyes met. For a long moment, neither spoke. She looked older. When had she gotten so old? "Mama," Chaik said, his voice breaking on the word. She set down her broom carefully. "You came." "I had to. Is it true?" Papa Ejike emerged from the house, moving slowly. His taxi driver days were behind him now. Arthritis had settled into his joints. He looked at Chaik with an expression that held no anger, only deep sadness. "Come inside," Papa Ejike said. "It's time you knew everything." Inside the small sitting room, Chaik sat on the same worn couch he'd grown up with. His mother brought him water in a plastic cup, not the glass tumblers reserved for important guests. He noticed he was still family, even now. Mama Dana pulled out the yellow envelope he'd seen in the video. Up close, he could see how carefully it had been preserved, wrapped in plastic, stored with reverence. "We found you on October 15th, 1997, she began. "We had been trying to have a baby for 7 years. I had miscarried 3 times. The doctor said I might never carry a child to term. We were coming home from evening prayers when we heard you crying." She pulled out the cloth, the damask fabric with gold embroidery. Chaik reached out and touched it, his fingers trembling. It was real. All of it was real. The note was pinned to the basket. Papa Ejike continued, pulling out a plastic wrap paper. "We still have it." Chaik took the note with shaking hands. The paper was expensive, the handwriting elegant and educated. "His name is Chikaziobi. He was born October 12th, 1997. I am young and unmarried. My family is prominent, and they will destroy me if they discover I had a child out of wedlock. I cannot keep him, but I want him to live. Please give him a life I cannot. Tell him his mother loved him enough to let him go. The father is a married man who will never claim him. I am sorry. I am so sorry. A mother who loves him." Tears blurred Chaik's vision. "Who was she?" "We don't know," Mama Dana said. "We took you to the police. They investigated for months. The hospital had no record of any birth that night. The cloth suggested wealth, but no prominent families reported a missing child or a scandal. Whoever she was, she hid it well. We decided to raise you as our own," Papa Ejike said. "We were going to tell you when you were older, but you were so happy, so confident. We were afraid you would feel unwanted, rejected. We thought we were protecting you." Chaik looked at them. These people who had given him everything, who had loved him without condition, without blood ties, without any obligation except the obligation they'd chosen. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Mama, Papa, I'm so sorry for what I said. I was arrogant and stupid and cruel." "You were hurt," Mama Dana said quietly. "You've been running from something your whole life." "Chaik." "We could see it, but didn't understand it. Maybe you felt the truth even when you didn't know it. That's no excuse." "No," Papa Ejike agreed. "It's not. You dishonored us in front of the whole country. You broke your mother's heart. But you're still our son. You'll always be our son." The words broke something open in Chaik. He dropped to his knees in front of them, tears streaming down his face. The proud, successful entrepreneur, reduced to a child again, begging forgiveness from the only parents he'd ever known. "I'll make this right," he promised. "I'll tell everyone the truth. I'll honor you the way I should have all along." Mama Dana placed her hand on his head, the way she had when he was young and needed comfort. "The truth is simple, Chaik. We loved you. We still love you. Everything else is just noise." But as Chaik sat there, embraced by forgiveness he didn't deserve, one question burned in his mind. Who was his birth mother? And why, after 28 years, did he suddenly need to find her? 3 weeks later, Chaik had become a different person. He'd done a public apology, not a polished PR statement, but a raw, honest video filmed at his parents' compound. He'd told the whole story, acknowledged his cruelty, and thanked Mama Dana and Papa Ejike for their sacrifice. The video went viral for different reasons this time. People wept. Comments shifted from anger to forgiveness to admiration for his parents. But privately, Chaik had begun an investigation. He hired a private detective in Enugu. They started with a hospital, Mother of Mercy, and a date, October 12, 1997. The hospital's records from that era were incomplete, but they found something interesting. On October 11th, a private ambulance had been called to a residence in New Haven, Enugu's wealthiest neighborhood, for a medical emergency. No further details. The detective found the ambulance driver, now retired. "I remember that night," the old man said. "Rich family, big house with gates and guards. Young girl, maybe 19 or 20. She was in labor. They told me to take her to a private clinic, not the hospital. They paid me extra to forget about it." "Which clinic?" Chaik asked. "It's closed now. But the doctor, I think his name was Dr. Arens." It took another week to find Dr. Arens, now elderly and running a small pharmacy in Enugu. He was reluctant to talk until Chaik showed him the note his birth mother had written. The doctor's face softened. "I remember. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen in my practice. She was so young, so scared. Her family had no idea. She'd hidden the pregnancy with loose clothes. She gave birth in my clinic, held the baby for an hour, then begged me to help her place him somewhere he'd be found." "Who was she?" Chaik's voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Arens hesitated. "I don't know if I should." "Please." The old doctor sighed. "Her name was Obiageli Obi. Her father was Justice Obi, one of the most powerful judges in the Southeast. Very strict, very traditional. If he found out his unmarried daughter had a baby..." He shook his head. "It would destroy their family's name." Chaik's heart pounded. "Where is she now?" "I don't know. The family moved to Abuja years ago." "But..." Dr. Arens pulled out his old phone and scrolled through contacts. "I have a number. I don't know if it still works." That night, Chaik sat in his hotel room in Enugu, staring at the number on his phone. His birth mother. After 28 years of not knowing, not even wondering, suddenly she was real, reachable. He dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" A woman's voice, educated, cautious. Is this Obiageli Obi?" A long pause. "Who is asking?" "My name is Chaik. Chaik Okonkwo. I was born on October 12, 1997, and I was left outside Mother of Mercy Hospital. I have a note. It says my mother's name was A Mother Who Loves Him." He heard a sharp intake of breath. Then silence. For a moment, he thought she'd hung up. "You found me," she whispered finally. "After all these years, you found me." They met in a quiet hotel restaurant in Abuja. Chaik arrived first, his hands shaking as he waited. When Obiageli Obi walked in, he knew her instantly. She had his eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, the same way of holding her head high despite everything. She was elegant, well-dressed, clearly successful, but her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying for days. "Chikazi," she said, using his full name, You look exactly like your father." They sat. For a long moment, neither knew where to begin. "I've thought about you every single day for 28 years, Obiageli finally said. "Every birthday, every Christmas, every achievement I made, every failure I suffered. I wonder where you were, if you were happy, if you were alive. Why didn't you try to find me?" Chaik asked. The question came out harder than he intended. Her face crumpled. "I was 19, Chaik. 19 and terrified. Your father was my father's colleague, a married judge. We had an affair. When I got pregnant, he wanted me to end it. I refused, but I couldn't keep you either. My father would have disowned me, maybe worse. So I hid the pregnancy, gave birth in secret, and left you where I knew you'd be found by good people." "How did you know they'd be good people?" "I didn't." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I prayed harder than I've ever prayed for anything. And then years later, I searched. I found out about a Jike and Adana Okonkwo, how they'd taken in a baby boy, raised him, loved him. I watched from a distance. I saw you graduate secondary school. I saw your university admission. I followed your career. She laughed bitterly. I even invested in your company, though you never knew it. Chike's head spun. You've been watching me all this time? From the shadows. I couldn't risk revealing myself. I got married eventually, had other children. My husband doesn't know about you. My father died never knowing. It's been my secret shame and my greatest pride, watching you become successful, brilliant, everything I hoped you'd be. I saw your interview, she continued quietly. When you spoke about your parents that way, I want to tell you the truth. I wanted to say, those people are heroes. They gave you what I couldn't. But I was a coward. I've always been a coward. Chike looked at this woman, his birth mother, and felt a strange mix of emotions. She had given him life, but given him away. She had watched him from afar, but never claimed him. She had loved him in her own way, but it was Mama Dana and Papa Jike who had loved him in every way that mattered. I don't hate you, he said finally. I understand why you did what you did, but I need you to understand something too. Obiageli nodded, waiting. You gave birth to me, but Mama Dana and Papa Jike are my parents. They're the ones who sat up with me when I was sick. They're the ones who sold everything to pay my school fees. They're the ones who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Choice does. Sacrifice does. I know, she whispered. I've always known. I don't know what relationship we can have, Chike continued. Maybe friendship eventually. But they are my parents. Not you. Obiageli smiled through her tears. That's exactly what I would want to hear. It means I left you with the right people. They talked for hours. She told him about his biological father, who had died 5 years ago. She told him about his half-siblings, who didn't know he existed. She offered him money, connections, anything he needed. He accepted only one thing, her blessing to tell the complete story. 2 months later, Chike appeared on Real Talk with Amara again. This time, Mama Dana and Papa Jike sat beside him. He held their hands as he told the full story. The abandonment, the adoption, the love, his arrogance, and his journey to understanding what family really means. I was abandoned by my birth mother, he said, looking directly into the camera. But I was never unwanted. These two people, he squeezed his parent hands, chose me when they didn't have to, loved me when they had every reason not to, gave me everything when they had so little. I spent my life thinking I was self-made, but the truth is, I was made by their sacrifice. He turned to face them. Mama, Papa, I'm sorry I forgot that. I'm sorry I was ashamed of you. You're the richest people I know, because you understand what real wealth is. Not money, not success, love. That's the only currency that matters. Mama Dana wiped her eyes. Papa Ejike gripped his son's shoulder. We forgive you, Mama Dana said simply. We always forgave you. The interview ended with Chike's announcement. He was moving his company's headquarters from Lagos to Enugu. He was building a tech hub in his hometown, creating jobs, investing in education. And he was establishing the Adana and Ejike Foundation to support adoptive families across Nigeria. My parents taught me that family isn't about blood, he concluded. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice. It's about love that costs you something. That's the truth that went viral in my life. And it's a truth I'll never forget again. As the cameras stopped rolling, Chike embraced his parents, the only parents that mattered. And somewhere in Abuja, Obiageli Obi watched the interview through tears, grateful that 28 years ago, she made the right choice after all.